The New Jersey Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Belvidere Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted with the Star Ledger and Express Times and submitted to the town clerk of the town of Belvidere on January 9th, 2023. Meeting will be live streamed at www.belvideresd.org. Statement. The mission of the Belvidere School District is to celebrate our past and empower our future while focusing on the four cornerstones of our district: tradition, excellence, academics, and community. We strive to build confidence and promote collaboration. We encourage an equal partnership with our students and staff as well as its community members. We empower everyone to develop the best versions of themselves. The Belvidere School District is committed to shaping students into global citizens who take initiative for their success and contribute to the continued excellence of the district. Our students are leaders in the decision-making process of their education and will be prepared to excel in a 21st century society.
Mr. Ackerman? Mr. Blum? Dr. Zuppeth?
Here.
Mrs. Duckworth? Mrs. Scardella?
Here.
Mrs. Kennedy?
Here.
Mrs. Scott?
Here.
Mr. Scott? Mrs. Steffen?
Here.
Mr. Ty?
Here.
Mrs. Weidlich?
All right, it is now time to interview our board candidate for our open 2023 seat. Mr. McKelver? Or
So my name's Jordan McElroy. Sounding good? So appreciate you guys inviting me here tonight. So I'm interested in the open seat because I spent 4 years in these walls. I grew up in this community. I have 2 kids who are going to be attending the school district in the coming years. And it's my hope to contribute to the initiatives of this school and help lay a foundation of success for all the students as was given to me. So I welcome any questions you guys might have.
I just have a question about, I know that your resume mentioned quite a bit about your sports background.
Sure.
In your career. I was just wondering, if you've been paying attention to some of our board meetings. We've really taken a lot of initiative in the last year or two to kind of revitalize our sports programs, get our numbers up. And I think numbers across everywhere are down. And we even made a sports ad hoc committee and things like that to try to drive up those numbers. I'm wondering if you had any ideas. Are you noticing, from having gone to Belvidere in the past versus what you would like to see for now and for your children's future? What could you bring from your background in sports to help us?
Well, I think back to my own experiences, and really it was the sense of community that I had and the relationships that I had with all my fellow classmates and teammates coming up for sport. We were fortunate enough that we were pretty successful in a bunch of sports from an early age, so I think that was a huge momentum builder as we got older. So I think, kind of to what I said previously, just foundationally, it's just about getting all the building blocks in that foundation. So as our students are becoming student athletes and they're focusing on academics and schoolwork, that they have everything. I'm sorry, I don't really.
You're doing great.
Well, yeah, no, I'm trying. Yeah, I think it really just starts from the early ages and youth participation and building relationships and being comfortable. I know that what we're seeing, particularly with a lot of the younger age kids, is that there's a lack of confidence when it comes to their participation in sports. So I think it's about getting them in a place where they feel comfortable enough to kind of put themselves out there enough and put themselves into a position to succeed. Yep.
I actually have 3 questions for you.
Okay, hit me.
What is? I'm gonna be nice. No worries. What do you think that the district has done well?
It's not a hard question. I think, again, not to lean back on a previous answer, but I really think it's community. I know that I, like many other students, some left, some came back, some never left. And I'm one of those people that when I went away to college and I started my career, I always had the goal of coming back to Belvidere. And that's because of all of the things that make this town great. And the school district, the people in it, are all critical to that. So I really think it's just that sense of community.
Okay. So on the flip side of that, what areas do you feel need to be improved upon?
I think it just comes down to resources, making sure that the resources are available for the opportunities that the kids want to pursue.
Any ideas where those resources would come from?
Not off the top of my head. I think there could be budget reallocations. Looking through all that. No, nothing specifically off the top of my head. But when it comes to something like sport participation, having an active, engaged booster club certainly is a part of that.
Okay. Where do you see the school district in 3 years?
I don't know. Hopefully in a better place than it is today. So
Piggybacking on that,
sure.
because you kind of skated around the areas of improvement, you just said hopefully better than where it is. So what are those things that you feel are not up to par?
I can't point to one thing specifically. Unfortunately, I have not been in the district in the capacity of a parent or in any other capacity. So yeah, I'm sorry. I can't point to one thing and say this is our need of improvement. I would certainly lean on you as fellow board members and your experience on the board on things that you've identified to improve, and I hope that my perspective could be of value in whatever decisions need to be made moving forward.
As a project manager, how would you use that knowledge and that functionality to bring to the Board of Education?
Well, if you'd like a glorified babysitter, I'm your person. In my role, whether I'm dealing with clients or vendors, it's really just about knocking on the door and demanding answers as soon as you can. Sometimes it goes better than others, but it's really, it's a multifaceted approach. Communication, outlining expectations in advance, all of those things, all of those professional skills that I've been fortunate enough to gain, really just utilizing those in all aspects of what I do, really.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the hard questions. Yes, sir.
First.
I appreciate that.
What
Enrollment, resources, just from what I hear on the news, mental health and well-being of our students. Yeah.
Other questions?
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
it's okay. I have two questions, different route. One, is there any members of your family that are teachers or a part of a school district?
No.
Wife's family either?
What's that?
Your wife's family either?
No.
Okay. And what happened to you last week?
What happened
That
to me
wasn't
last
his
week?
fault. That was our fault.
Okay.
That
I
wasn't
had to
his
go out and
fault.
take a phone call, so I must have missed that because I'm like,
Yeah,
he really wants to be
no.
here, but he doesn't show up.
That was not him.
Good work, Sal.
I was cleaning up spilled milk in the middle of that phone
Good, then
call.
you're forgiven for that one.
Actual spilled milk through the crack of the table and everything like that. So yeah.
And the only question I have is, as a project manager, what was the last project you managed, and tell us a little bit about it.
In my role, I serve as a distribution project manager for a company called Thermo Fisher Scientific. The company itself has its arms in all different aspects of scientific equipment and pharmaceuticals, but mainly what I do is work with our clients to get their drug from our site anywhere in the world within, conservatively, 1 day to 1 week. So a lot of that is system setup on our end and coordinating paperwork to make sure that we're meeting all FDA guidelines and things like that. Right now, I have just completely onboarded and began distribution for my first client. I actually just started in this role about 5 months ago. So it was a big transition for me coming from a world of higher education and athletics and transitioning into this big corporate world. But I've successfully onboarded my first client. I have drug being shipped to sites, and they're treating patients for Alzheimer's. So from that aspect, it's very rewarding.
All right, so it's not a PMP position.
No, there are PMPs, but I am
Yeah.
not. I do not have a PMP.
Okay, that's good, thanks.
Yep.
That's all.
Any other questions? Thank you so much for your time. We're
Thank
going to go into executive session and then get right back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Motion to go into executive session. All right, motion made to go into executive session to discuss board candidate. Any discussion held by the board which need not remain confidential will be made public as soon as practicable. Minutes of this executive session will not be disclosed until the need for confidentiality no longer exists. The board will reconvene in public session at the conclusion of the closed session in approximately 10 minutes. Okay.
I second it.
All in favor, or is it in roll call? All in favor? Okay, all in favor.
Aye.
Any noes? Abstentions? Okay, congratulations.
I can just get up.
Come on over, Jordan. Now the hard part.
Yes.
Oh.
Now I'm gonna. After me.
All right. I, Jordan McElroy, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and this state under the authority of the people, so help me God. I, Jordan McElroy, do solemnly swear that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of member of a board of education, and that I am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 1941, nor disqualified due to conviction of a crime or offense listed in NJS 18A 12-1, and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all duties of that office according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Okay, welcome and thank you. All right, we're now moving on to our discussion regarding facilities, fields, all those topics that we wanted to discuss while we had everyone here. There's been separate, over the course of last year, separate, ad hoc committee meetings about fields. There's been finance committees. But I think when we're talking, things like big ticket items and big financials like that, we need to discuss all together. So that's what we're here tonight for. We just had a finance meeting, and we talked last time about not last time, but we voted on having the appraisal done on Third Street a couple meetings ago. And that was done recently. We don't have the written report, but we did meet with Mr.
George Sopko.
Sopko virtually today in the finance meeting. And he gave us some information. There's a lot more to do, but as far as the numbers on the appraisal, we weren't thrilled. So basically, if we are looking to fund any of the big ticket items we were talking about, like fields, tracks, things like that in the future, we would have to go to referendum. And that we can sit here and discuss that tonight and see, if that's the direction the board, wants to move, or if we have a lot of people, hesitant about doing that, then we maybe are going to hold off on those big ticket item discussions for a while because we don't have it in the budget.
Can you tell us what kind of number he was talking about?
On
Ballpark
the
it?
low, my on? Okay. On the low end, about 400,000. On the very high end, maybe a touch over $1 million, but that's being extremely optimistic.
Why, just out of curiosity, I mean, most of our houses are worth like $350.
Right.
So how could that only be like 400?
So it comes down to, and anybody on the finance committee wants to jump in, it comes down to the potential for it. So what are you doing with it? From his point of view, which he had said when we first met, and then he backed off, and then he came back to it, was the simplest thing is to just knock the building down and build 3-4 houses on the lots because of what it is. That being said, what are we going to get for the value of the property, and then for a builder to come in and make a profit, what does that look like? Then he did eventually get around to the possibility of turning it into apartments, the actual physical building turned into apartments. But with that, the investment that would have to go into it would be significant also. It is currently zoned residential, so that's an issue if someone wanted to come in and try to, make retail shops or office buildings or something at that. So we were hoping, and the we is Shelley and I, because we met with him over Christmas break, that he would have a little bit more dialed in number, but he didn't definitely seem to have that, and still was looking for some information plus the historical piece of the building itself.
That hasn't been answered, where we stand historically, parameters we have to follow. Still don't have that information.
Is that building really historical?
Yeah.
I mean, that's, what do you say, 1842? I mean, I didn't know, but they said 1842 it was built.
Holy crap.
Meanwhile, not the school. No.
No,
I
it
know,
was a-
we know
it
the
was
school
something
was
else
early
first.
1900s, but
First.
it must have been something first. He had a year, and I was surprised by that.
I'm
So
surprised at the year because I thought everything was 1870 something.
And they had,
Right, but
when
it-
they did the 100 years of it, they have a picture of the nurses and stuff. They had that
I'm
had
not saying
graduated.
it's not
so-
100.
No,
I
but I'm
think it's
just
100,
saying,
but-
yeah.
Yeah, 100
When they
plus.
did the 100 years over at the school, they had the open house thing,
Right.
and they had the pictures of like some of the first like Red Cross nurse graduates there.
I didn't realize 1842 though.
Yeah,
Then we are
no.
talking
But yeah,
historical
so-
if that
Yeah,
year is
Yeah.
correct. So I don't know if anybody has any more
I don't-
historical knowledge. Or,
that picture should be around somewhere because they had it for the open house and it had a date on it. And I forget what it was, but that's a class. They have all the nurses lined up in front of the school with the Red Cross uniforms on and stuff. I remember it hanging in the hall when they
Wow.
did the open house for the 100 years.
Back to, I tell you, we should tear it down and sell the bricks. The commemorative brick for everybody that went to the school. $20 a brick. How many bricks we got? $1 million worth.
50,000 bricks? We need.
and my question was, what's the harm in going to public auction to see what we get? Because we get to decide, the highest bidder, especially if we really advertise it out there to, big business, hopefully. But Laura had a good point in that if we get the bids that she expects or this gentleman expects us to get based on his appraisals, then if we decide, no, we're not going to take it, and then we decide to do this later on, they're going to go back to the last bids, and we kind of could be handcuffing ourselves. So this conversation just happened half an hour ago. So if you're having a hard time following, it's because we just found out.
I think it's a
So-
good wrap up of that. I think, you know, we had talked, hopefully that would have been part of the process of the project, but it clearly doesn't look like that's going to be the starting point. Certainly time-wise also, too. We don't know how long it would take. You know, there's a few other things, a few other factors that would have to go into that. The other thing, and I'll just mention it before Mrs. Duckworth asks the question, Shelley and I also had our mid-year budget review at the county office yesterday, and we asked the county BA about the regionalization, or actually he brought it up to us, I should say that. He knew, well, because we had talked about it last year that we were applying for the grant, and he said even at their level, they have no information on it, which, you know, the likelihood of it being resolved anytime in the short future is not good.
So given that double bad news there, and that
That's
we have,
horrible.
yeah, no motion to adjourn yet, soon, but we do have to talk about, you know, moving in a direction. If we're not going to get any help regionalization-wise anytime soon, and we're not going to be able to do anything with this building anytime soon, we haven't really talked about referendum and how you guys feel about that. I'm not saying we're voting tonight, but we need to kind of, while we're all here tonight, discuss the benefits, the drawbacks, the concerns while we're here.
Before we can have a productive discussion, I think we need more information
On the selling of Third Street or referendums?
on the referendum. Shelley and I were at a seminar, if I can call it that, down at the school board. Got some information there.
Mm-hmm.
So someone from perhaps that organization could come here and talk to us.
Can you just give us an overview of like what that is and what it would entail, like just a general, general,
Yeah.
so that we all can kind of be on a base?
There's 4 dates that you can go out for referendum throughout the year, and it takes a long time to prepare for that, mostly for the marketing, if you want your referendum to pass. I did have information from the same Tony Solomon that we had seen, right, Mr. Blum?
Yes.
Right here in front of me. But basically, we would have to decide which project we would want to do, the magnitude of it, and then they would go through the costs for the borrowing, and we would put together the referendum package, and then it just takes time to market it. So then if you pass, and then it's another probably year before we actually get anything built. So I think it's just a matter of our question. I mean, are we willing to go out to the voters to ask for funding to do such a project? And then on top of that, then when you go out for referendum, then the amount will be paid by the taxpayers of Belvidere. And it can complicate any kind of regionalization down the road with your debt.
What was that last part?
We would then have debt on hand, so then when you regionalize, the debt kind of
Mm-hmm.
can distort
Complicates.
your regionalization. But the projects that we had talked about, we really can't do a capital lease for. So without having Third Street sale, we don't have any other options. One other point that came up in finance too, sometimes when you do a referendum, it wouldn't necessarily just be for athletic fields. Like if there was other academic needs, they do like a combination of items. You know, we could combine it, but at this point, we would have, you know, a lot of open discussion on what we would go out to referendum for. But I think, Jen, you're trying to just get an idea.
Yeah, I mean, and I agree.
Are you even
if this
open to
board
the idea?
decides that we're really open to it, then I think we should bring somebody in to make sure we're you know, crossing our T's, dotting our I's. But I don't want to take that time if I get a consensus that you don't want to move that direction. I mean, not a vote, but just I'd like some, you know, people to express, some feedback, some concerns, some.
What happens when a referendum doesn't pass?
Um,
Is it dead? Is there other funding that comes up from it? Is it?
I mean, I think you can go out again, but I mean, I guess it's how resounding the voting comes back.
Mhm.
Right? I mean, if it was close, maybe something you would look at again. Depending what we would go out for referendum for, there's potential for some debt service aid. It just depends what we choose to do.
What,
There would be debt service aid is a potential if you go out for referendum to take on the debt. That's something that we wouldn't get otherwise, but it's only, that would be more on any academic needs or, right, it wouldn't be, we wouldn't qualify under our athletic projects that we're
Yeah.
looking at.
I know when we were talking about heating, HVAC, we
Right.
talked about referendum, and if it didn't pass, it was that aid that, yeah, I was trying to
Right.
figure out, so it's not gonna cover athletics.
Right. The HVAC project is hopefully going out for bid in the next month or so. That's when we got the grant, almost $900,000 for those upgrades. So we got that off our plate, but the next big thing was the athletic upgrades, and we've been spending a lot of time analyzing it. Now, I think we're just trying to decide which direction are we going so that we
how much does
know.
the referendum cost, or is that dependent on what's in the referendum?
I don't know if I actually have any professional fees cost yet, but it's not, I mean, especially if you do it in November when it's combined with the other election, you don't have the separate election costs. I don't think that cost would be that significant compared to the actual project.
There are also companies out there that will walk us through the procedure. Of course, they're gonna cost something, but that would be valuable if a district wants to be successful in floating a bond issue.
Right, and right now, we've made contact with an actual bond attorney as well as a financial advisor where they actually give us, I mean, I have numbers for what our borrowing capacity is. It's $7.5 million. What the actual debt cost would be. But it's actually the architect that really leads you through the project. And, actually get through the referendum process.
And what's the estimated payback time
Um,
on something like this? Like,
I think the maximum is up to 20 years. Most, I think, are 15.
It's dependent upon the useful life of the improvement.
Does the public know some of the estimates that we've gotten for cost for like just the track, just,
I mean, we've talked about them in public
turf field.
meetings.
have we talked about
Ballparks.
prices out loud, or?
yeah,
Not
Just-
much, but I mean,
Yeah,
we've
they were on
mentioned
the-
Yeah, we
certain
have.
things.
they were on the one.
For the public.
Yeah, they were on the
Okay, yeah, we talked
breakdown. We
about it a
had
few
them on the
times.
screen here and
Okay,
everything.
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not really for the athletic field improvements until we get more participation. I don't see for the participation we're currently getting, especially for the outdoor sports, just doesn't really, I can't justify spending that much money on it at this point. If we get more students, I would definitely consider it because I think it's something that would be good for the whole community, but at this point in time, something that I wouldn't be supporting.
Yep.
Kind of with Morris, I took the numbers that Brad had supplied, even though they were kind of skewed. I took 17, 18 out because of obviously a softball team doesn't have 7 players. And even normalizing it out to the declining student population, every sport has declined with the exception of spring track. That's gone up a little bit. Not even enough statistically to even make it worthwhile. So you can't blame it on the declining enrollment. Even with less students, our sports are declining. So I don't know how I could justify in my mind spending all that money for fields that such a small portion of the population is gonna get to use.
I concur with those two opinions.
I
That,
No.
that's
Yeah.
been,
Yeah.
that's
Comes
been
first
our
the chicken or the egg.
conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been our conversation in the sports ad hoc committee, quite a bit, you know, what comes first? Well, how do we drive up numbers? And, we've had a lot of public, community members come and express their concerns and how it's, you know, demoralizing. The kids don't want to play here because of the fields and they go play other places. And, you know, it's one of the main reasons we really looked so heavily into it. You know, we want the best we can have for our kids, you know, like, and other small schools somehow have figured it out. So we said to ourselves, why can't we? And we've spent a lot of time on it. And unfortunately, it's coming down to referendum, and you know that can't just be a few people. We kind of have to be on the same page. I appreciate that question.
I think it bothers me that it could affect consolidation. You know, the fact that if there's a big ticket, you know, on there that's going to affect agreeance to go into something like that, if that's even what we come down to being the best option, and it's so unknown, not even be able to have our feasibility study yet. That's my big thing. I'm into sports. You guys know I try to get the youth sports with B.O.E for years. The numbers aren't there. And the little kids are not fighting over what the condition of the field is.
No.
I can tell you that. And those numbers are down. So if you're not getting them to play between 2nd grade and 8th grade, how are you going to get them to be playing as freshmen and sophomores? So it's not because of condition of the field when they're little that they're not out there. And it's everywhere. I have meetings for all different sports, and it's everywhere. Every community is struggling for numbers. So many of our leagues are going together to pool for their registrations just to make teams. And it was never like that years ago. So I worry about that, and the fact that we can't get a feasibility study off the ground in 3 years, and the state's not doing anything to help us now. If you're saying that could affect when it come down to if consolidation comes out of the feasibility study is a good thing, and now other towns are gonna be like, I don't know, they're in this big debt over there, we don't want to get into that. That makes me worry more.
On the flip side of that, though, it's you improved the school, so we are going to be more willing to come.
We're
Maybe.
offering something.
Yeah, maybe. You're
Maybe.
right. Yeah,
Maybe.
It's all maybes, and that's what's kind of scary.
I think if we, and I'll go back to every single thing that I've said before, I think if we look at what we are doing now and improve on what we have now, we can hopefully make the conditions of the field better. And I understand, you know, field hockey, that's a very fast-moving game. But unfortunately, with all the numbers and things like that, and I would love to say, yes, go for a referendum. However, I also know the town. And I would hope that maybe I would be pleasantly surprised in the way that things would go, but I don't think that the town would go for it.
Yeah, I'll just jump into it because I think Melissa's point's well taken. It's a lot of what ifs. And, you know, the perfect example is the feasibility study that we all thought would be not necessarily fast track, but certainly by this point in time, we would be into the throes of it, right? And here we are, you know, application due June 30th. We're almost 7 full months past that without even getting any sort of an answer. And I think that those kinds of things trouble me because we thought that, you know, again, we talked about maybe third shoot would be something. Now that's going to push things out. Now our reality of a feasibility study is at best we get something back in 2 years. I mean, just being realistic. And again, that's getting a study back. That's not 4 different boards discussing it and what direction they want to go in. You know, so it comes down to we have to take if we're going to do it, it's going to be on our backs, and we know that. Now, once everything is built, then it gets kicked out to the sending districts, but then their tuition is going to go up exponentially, and that's something to keep in mind too. So you know, there's a lot too, and I think there's a lot of well taken points here for sure. But there's too many what ifs at the moment, I think.
So, Robin and Doug from the sending district, sorry to put you on the spot, but kind of, you sit on two other boards, that feed into the high school. And what would be the general consensus of what they want to see here?
I will tell you, our past BA was not in favor. She said it would just, as it is right now, we're paying $18,000 a student. So, to ask, that of the taxpayers, I mean, I just kind of quickly did the calculation, 2 million. If we went out for referendum just on 2 million, that's $100,000 a year added to the budget just on principal. Doesn't include interest. So, you're, I don't know.
A lot to swallow.
It's a tough nut.
What facility upgrades do we need and what do they cost?
Yeah, let's just hear Robin's answer first, though. I just want to hear from White Township.
Yeah, I'd have to
Sorry.
agree with Doug as far as the tuition, because we've talked about that multiple times. That the tuition is, fairly high, and you compare to other districts around and higher, and you compare what we're speaking about is field.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, travel, track.
Mm-hmm.
So while I agree academics are utmost importance, right? But not every child excels in academics, so they need the outlet of sports. Doug started to say, if you build it, they will come. Fair enough. The debt, absolutely something to think about, especially if it's going to carry over and interfere with feasibility and things like that. But, student athletes have probably declined some electronics, cell phones. We need to get these kids outside. So having the track and having the fields, also in some other towns, it's open to the public. So that'll get the community back, here to the school to walk with their children, their parents, whatever the case. So it'll bring the community back together as a whole. Also, I don't know, is there donors, fundraisers? I mean, there's people with easy money.
We've talked about
What
that, too.
who can I give it to? You know what I mean?
One of the
Grant,
things-
anything. You
one
know
of
what I
the
mean?
things-
We have some old money in these sending districts and towns, and if it's gonna bring smiles to kids, gonna say
Just so you know, one of the things we found with our grant writer, we have a grant writer now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And she was telling us about some big grants that are out there. Unfortunately, a lot of them we have to match. We don't have the money to match half. So that brought us to another problem. I mean, I'm hoping she's still out
Yeah,
there looking.
she is for sure, and she sends us stuff on a weekly basis. Our reality is that we're small, so it's not as sexy to give $1 million to Belvidere as it is to Easton, and we've been fighting that fight for a long time. I was disappointed because we put in what we thought was a very competitive grant application just for $50,000 on our auditorium, and we got rejected. We just found that out last week, and thanks for sending the application. That's all we got. Not didn't do this, you didn't do that. I mean, and so it is a good process. And we've gotten some smaller grants, and we have done some things. In fact, there's a couple that we're following up this week. But I think that big ticket item, they're looking for where someone can just really splash their name somewhere where it's going to be seen a lot. And that's something we fought for a long time, being the small fish in a big pond.
maybe the sale eventually of 3rd Street, right? Put into savings or some capital reserve, and then that could be our matching, our potential.
Sure.
Also
Certainly
another
talks
discussion.
And I think that what Robin said before, that there are people with money, because there are people who are graduates of Belvidere who have financed fields in Knowlton and they financed fields at North Warren. They've spent a lot of money. And I think, again, like a Belvidere Educational Foundation would be something that we could have, or even a committee of the board that we could approach some of these people and talk to them about would they be willing to help us out with that. Because I think to go out on a referendum and say, well, what have we done to raise any money, and said, well, we went to referendum and we want it to come out of your pocket, I think that it would be a great thing to be able to say, well, we've got commitments for $1 million, $1.5 million, whatever, before we went to referendum, and say, we're going to referendum, but we already have a commitment here. I think that would make a lot more sense.
I agree.
To go back to Mr. Blum's question before, can we get an updated version of the facilities? I know we had Mr. Barrett come in and last year go over everything that was needed. Can we get an update of what's been done, how much there is left to do, like what are the pressing things and how much are they gonna cost? Because if the same point that was said before, we need to fix the building. So anything that's, we need to fix the building, we need to look at those numbers and try and take care of some of that, because if we're gonna go out from referendum on fields, how can we not be fixing what's in the building too? So I'd like to get like an idea of what we're looking at currently as
So
an update.
I think that's a loaded question. And I'm going to tell you why I think it's a loaded question, because I can bring 5 people and ask them the same question and get 5 very different answers. So if you ask me what my priorities would be, and you ask Mr. Barrett what his priorities would be, and if you ask Mr. Bartow what his priorities would be, it'd be very different. So, and I think that's part of where we've gotten to when it comes to that. So, you know, I agree, and someone on the board said it, like it's student athletes first, but student is first. So to me, if you're going to take out a large amount of money, it should be to fix the building and the facilities first. Classrooms, update the classrooms. That's my opinion as an educator. Again, Mr. Bartow is the athletic director. I would imagine he would be, not he would agree because he's also a vice principal, but he would certainly be pushing for the athletic fields first. Mr. Barrick may tell you we need a new parking lot, we need new underground drainage. You know, so we can certainly do all that. I'm not saying no to that, but I think it becomes the priority of what we all think is the most important part of that. And I think that sometimes sways when we have some people from the public come in and talk a little bit about what they think is most important. I mean, 2.5 years ago it was a press box. We got to have a press box. Okay, we got by without a press box. Now it's field hockey field. Get a field hockey field. Now, you know, track, and I think somebody said gravel track, and I agree with that because we you know, like I said, we had a student that was in the sectional semifinals who trained on a gravel track. That's impressive. So it's just, you know, I think we can do that, and we can have Mr. Barrick put that list together. I just think it's going to be how Mr. Barrick sees that rather than how everybody sees it.
Yeah, we can take the facility study that we had one of the architectural firms do.
Yeah.
I guess it was, what, a year and a half ago, probably
Yeah,
now?
it's been a while now. That's why I figured.
We can print that out, and I can have Jim just go down the list and let you know, okay, this is underway, done, still need, you know, so you can take the
Just
top.
basically an
tops of those.
update of that so we can see what money we've used and what still needs to really be done, you know, to keep the kids safe and healthy. And that's my main concern right there.
I think we had
And
like 10
update
things or something on that top of that list, and I think
Yeah.
5 or 6 of them part of this HVAC project in the grant, and then I think the other ones were athletic, and that's basically how we got to where we are.
Aren't they all in long range?
There's a lot in there.
Yeah, there's a lot.
I
Yeah.
but Didn't we go through and?
We had a
and-
list, a hit list.
Yeah. I thought
Yeah.
we had-
Yeah, so I want to
Okay.
Yeah, I
see if
think
we
that's
can
like
get an
$90
update
million
and just see
in
where
the
we
long-range
stand
facility
still.
plan.
Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
It totaled a lot. So that's
was
why
a
I just want to get an idea of see where we stand. Apparently, we didn't pay the electric bill.
I'm thinking we didn't pay our bill. We didn't have the money.
Motion sensing.
There you go. Get a motion.
Things are real bad.
Take a
It's
run.
getting darker, darker, darker.
How is that going to affect us? My company electric bill is doubling this year. Okay, Sussex Rural is upping their electric by 50%. Everybody is. So do we know what's going to happen with our electric bill when we're on that subject? Because that might be something we need to keep in mind. That just reminded me of that. I'm sorry.
But we've energy saving lighting apparently.
We did. Clearly did.
Yeah.
And I've been shutting the lights off at their shit, so.
Yeah, in Pennsylvania, they're doubling the electric. I don't know here. That's why I'm asking the question. If we know it and have we thought about it and have we factored that in? I take that as a no. Okay.
So, I'm sorry. Go, no,
She's
please,
on it.
please.
She's on it. Think positive.
We have not. And just having a conversation this morning with someone about this. The peril of that is once you go out, the expectation is that it'll get done. So
Oh,
I
I
think
did.
we've had the court of public opinion here a few times about what the most important pieces of it are. I mean, honestly, I think everybody agrees field hockey has been the biggest push over the last 12 months.
I'm going to tell you, field hockey has gone from over 9% to 6%. They have not gone up in numbers, they've gone down in numbers.
Right.
So I don't know what they're telling us, but that's not true.
I don't know that when the conversation came up that they were discussing specific numbers, they were
Yeah.
discussing the specific
sport. The
The
facility
sport
Yeah.
itself.
in itself. So I think that's again, if I send out 300 surveys, I'm probably going to get 300 very different answers. So then how do you come up with one consensus on that? Now, we've also had the ad hoc committees that I think have played a part of that, and that's sort of driven where we've gone. And plus, just looking at the overall, we've had 2 different architecture firms come in, one specific to fields and one specific to the overall buildings. But I think as elected officials, that's kind of what the board is here really to decide. My
I-
opinion, of course.
I have a question.
Thanks.
Can the educational foundation that we've
That's
been
what I was just, go ahead.
that it's been bounced around and bounced around,
Mhm.
can any of us board members get together and start it
Well, what I was just-
legally, officially?
So the answer
and
to
go
that
from
is
there.
yes. So we've kicked around an educational foundation for probably better part of 10 years. And we've gone to the point of who's running the education foundation. The reality is, and I've said this before, and I think Mr. Blum would agree because we've talked about this, it should not be anybody in the administration.
Mhm.
It should be driven by the community and board members. So, we've gone back and forth on that. I'd be more than happy to kick that right over to you, Mr. Ty, as someone who can get that going. But I think there's a lot of value to it. I also think there's a lot of help out there for education foundations. There's a lot of successfully running ones. It's just a matter of who's going to commit the time to do it.
I was thinking, we'd last year had I know we still have sports ad hoc, and we still do need that because we still have, work to do there. But as far as the fields ad hoc, those meetings don't have to happen if we're not moving in any direction yet. So, I mean, I think to me, this would be a better use of our time if 3 or 4 members, like we got for fields, were willing to generously donate their time and can kind of really push this along. And if somebody would kind of lead us in that direction, I think that would be a great idea.
Didn't Brian talk about this at one point, possibly leaving the board to head up the foundation? Could we maybe reach out to Mr. Brian and see if he's interested?
that, but it sounds
I
He
don't
did.
recall that
He
either.
did. He said it a couple times.
Do we know of any successful foundations in the area that we can lean in on and see how they
Right.
structured it?
Mr. Carabinus had
Yeah, Chris,
contact.
I going back and you probably don't want to hear this because it goes against where your son's going to school, but the Sparta Education Foundation is, when I was there, and that was 13 years ago, was outstanding. I mean, talking raising multi-millions of dollars per year. Now, obviously, it's a bigger community. That being said, though, I'm sure they would be willing to help and just talk about how they got it started. Phillipsburg had one. I don't know if it's still currently running. I know I talked to Dr. Troxel about that a few times. So there are people that are local enough that will be willing to help.
Right across the river, Bangor Educational Foundation is very successful.
So could we reach out and maybe have them come talk to us about the process of how to start it and do it successfully?
Sure, but do you want them to come talk to all of us, or to already have a committee set of 3 or 4 people that are like committed to moving in that direction? Like we have like we just had our finance committee. I almost think it might be a better use of time just to have somebody, once we have our core group of people, reach out to 1 or 2 of those foundations and get some help and move in a direction then.
Have it set then?
If we close down the fields,
Yep.
I'd be happy to join as long as I'm not the secretary of that. Thank you.
Anybody else interested in coming on board?
What was the question?
Well, it would be undertaking
you're on
and
it, Dawn.
creating a new Belvidere Education Foundation, which would be a big undertaking. So,
I'm in.
thank you. So we have 2 so far, right? Thank you,
3.
Doug. All right, so starting with Doug, Bob, and Tom. Make it when when I can make it, I will take the notes. I have quite a few meetings. I didn't want to make any promises with this one. Anybody else? Any other?
How about you, Doc?
Oh, you're not.
I know it's important for me.
What is the educational foundation? Maybe help some of us out. What does it entail? Simple question.
Don't think we know yet because it's new. It's something we'd be
New
starting
to us here at Belvidere.
Yeah.
In general,
Ultimately,
the
it's just a lot of
Cliff Notes.
fundraising for different projects.
No fundraising committee.
Pretty much.
And like I think, again, I
Google
lost track of who
search
said certain things,
education
tapping into certain community members, tapping into certain alumni,
Education.
whether it's having a large scale, tricky tray or a silent auction or something, just to get some
partner.
help to build up funds.
And Jordan, I didn't mean to throw you under there. That was a nice bus. I'm just saying because you have all of that background and you do have that connection with a larger facility who knows, may want to throw some money our way or I don't know. And because you do have the athletic background, and I think if that is something that we're going to be focusing on, then
It would definitely be part of it. I mean, we definitely need field upgrades. Sports upgrades.
Yeah, I'll tackle that too. Happy to help out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Um,
You'd be secretary because you have an OPA.
Yeah, he's the secretary then, right?
it's still
He
Tom.
says no.
I don't know the details of that role, so
That's okay.
I'm gonna say pass for now. Thank you.
Anybody else? Because I'll send an email like to kind of get the first meeting rolled out. And I'll come to the first meeting and I'll see how many I can make from there. But does that sound good? I'll just send an email out to those that said they were interested.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Do we have to close the field because we are?
Yeah, I
9:05.
mean, I did send out, and I will send them to you, Jordan, now that you'll have I guess he'll get an email tonight. Everybody should have gotten their committee assignment for the year. And I don't think did I put field ad hoc on there?
I don't think you
I
did.
did. I don't think I did. I think I
don't think
put
so.
finance
ad
is on
hoc
there
is
and
on there.
sports ad hoc is on
Yeah.
there. So I'll add that and then Jordan, what committees he will be serving on. Any other conversation regarding these big ticket items? To me, it sounds like we're not moving in the direction of referendum right now, and we are looking to see what we can get on our own with the foundation.
The voter.
I don't think we have to take a vote, but
I would.
unless I'm summarizing incorrectly, like,
I would still like to see if someone could come in and talk about referendum.
I do too.
Huh?
Just
Just
so we knew for
just so
other
we
stuff,
have the
for
information.
other-
I
yeah,
said you too. Yes.
for anything, yeah.
Do we want to have a full board for this person to come in, or do we want it in finance? Full board?
Yeah, because if we're at any point going to vote for or against going to a referendum for anything,
Yeah.
we should all be on the same page as what exactly that's going to entail, I think.
And that can probably happen at a regular full board meeting.
Mm.
So we have our calendar.
Sure.
Bob, do you have a contact that you can reach out to and then just send
Yes.
me an email and we can come up with a date?
I will do that.
Thank you.
I think if you go back and look at the information that, I'm not sure what's the name of the company that Joe Flynn is with.
H2M.
H2M,
He gave us a whole referendum saying
the
what-
dates.
the dates
Yeah,
and how
he
you would
did.
do it and what has to happen, that type of thing. I think if you go back and look through your notes, that you'll see some of that. I think we still need to have someone come in, but it would give
Mhm.
you a good idea prior to that.
Of the time it takes, yeah. All right, so Bob's gonna email me the contact. All right, anything else on athletic fields and facilities discussion before we move to public participation? All right, public participation. Nothing?
Nothing.
I was sure. Thought for sure we had something back there. No? All right. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.